I will introduce Kat. So the presentation will cover the firefly life cycle, physiology, and diversity, as well as firefly habitat needs and the environmental threats contributing to declines in abundance. We will also discuss what people can do to support healthy populations of our iconic jewels of the night. And Kat is retired and has moved on to her new career as an aspiring amateur naturalist and a master gardener with a passion for our native flora and fauna. So I'm gonna stop sharing, hopefully. Oh, nope. There we go. And I think you are good to go, Kat.
I'm on. Okay. All right. Um, so, um, so, Hello, everybody. I'm really happy to be here. I'm kind of excited to present for Wild Ones because I think it's such a great organization. And we were just chatting before this about the really good work and information that, Wild Ones gets out to the public. Um, so I have been involved with Xerces Society for Invertebrate Conservation for a number of years as a volunteer ambassador. I'm also a Cuyahoga County Master Gardener, and so I have had a real passion and a real strong interest in growing natives and in learning more about invertebrates and how to support them in my personal environment. So I'm excited to talk to you about fireflies. I just want to make sure that everybody, if you're not familiar with Xerces Society, it's a pretty amazing organization. Um, they do a lot of really good, it's science-based nonprofit, do great research work. They also have, Xerces has an incredible website. Everything on it, all of their publications, papers, pamphlets, data sheets, everything is all available to download for free. So if you're, ever looking for information about, invertebrates, about habitat restoration, conservation, yada, yada, check out xerces.org. It's a really good website. So I just kind of talked about this, their publications library. And again, other than the books, they do have some really great books that you can order online. You can also get them on Amazon. But all of their other information is available on the website. So I love Xerces and I'm real happy to be a part of them. All right, so we are going to just jump into fireflies. And let's see, let me catch up to myself. Okay, so Xerces started, working on fireflies a couple years ago because there has been a lot of anecdotal evidence, really worldwide about declining firefly populations. People just, say we just don't see them like we did years ago. Oops, I don't want to go there quite yet. So Xerces put this presentation together. I have learned so much by learning this presentation and doing my own research. And one thing I was not aware of beforehand is that fireflies are beetles. They are, even though we call them, they're variously called lightning bugs, glowworms, fireflies, they're either not flies, worms, or bugs. They are in fact beetles in the order Coleoptera, family Lampyridae. So all of the images you see on this screen are actually different kinds of fireflies. Okay. I also did not know that fireflies are really widespread. You can find them in every state of the country except Hawaii, throughout most of Canada. There are at least 173 species in North America and 2,200 and counting species worldwide. We actually have in Ohio at least 32 species. Not all 32 are like in our particular, northeastern corner of the state, but nonetheless, I think that's a lot of species that we find just in our very own state. They're found in a wide variety of habitats, everything from riparian woodlands to, canyons in the desert. But all of their habitats, the thing that the commonality is the availability of moisture. So fireflies are very dependent for their development on having a moisture-rich environment. Okay. So the other thing I didn't know was that there's different kinds of fireflies. So firefly, even though we, here in Northeast Ohio, we typically see the flashing fireflies, but not all fireflies flash. And not all fireflies actually even look like beetles. So all three of the insects that you see on the screen here are fireflies. The one on the right-hand side is probably the one you're most, the kind that you're most familiar with, and that's the flashing firefly, and we usually call them lightning bugs. Over 75% of North American species are flashing fireflies. Each species, though, has its own geographic range, has its own specific flash pattern, a specific time that it starts flashing in the evening, specific flight altitudes, specific heights they like to perch at, and actually even color variations in the bioluminescence. So some of them flash a little more yellow, some of them might flash a little more green, some actually flash a little bluish. So there is a really wide variation in how in fireflies, in their natural life cycles between species. In general, the females that I'm talking about, adult females, are going to be found on or near the ground. So they're going to flash just to announce their presence. The males are the ones that you see flying around in the air. So they're flying up at, whatever, depending on the species, whatever height, that they fly at. And they're flashing their specific flash pattern for their species. And they're letting the females know that they're there and waiting for an invitation to come down for a mating opportunity. And apparently, there's quite a bit of competition. And the females can be pretty choosy. So females may reject one suitor and favor another. And it's thought that, the male fireflies that are maybe a little bigger, flash a little brighter, are the ones that get the most mating opportunities. All right, so flashing fireflies. So that's most fireflies are flashing fireflies, but we also have glowworms. So we don't have, to the best of my knowledge, we do not have glowworms in our corner of the woods. Most of them are found in the Western United States. This particular photo is of a California pink glowworm. In most of those species, the females, the adult females, are flightless. So this is still a beetle. She's still a beetle, but she doesn't fly. She can flash. So she glows kind of dimly on the ground. The males are flighted, but they do not flash. So again, like there's all this species variation, like sometimes the females flash, sometimes the males flash, sometimes none of the adults flash. But in this case, the females kind of glow very dimly on or near the ground, and the males fly overhead looking for them. They don't flash, but they have enormous eyes so that they can see these females glowing down on the ground. And then the third kind of type of firefly that we have are called dark fireflies. So there are actually fireflies that do not flash at all, and they are active during the day. so they are using, well, actually, I should backtrack a little bit. I don't know whether you are all aware of this, but the reason fireflies flash, it's a sexual communication. Males are flashing to females, females are flashing to males, saying, here I am, come find me. And, hopefully they end up with a mating opportunity. Same thing with the glowworms, that the bioluminescence is used as sexual communication. In the case of the dark fireflies, they use pheromones. So they're active during the day. They don't flash at all as adults. But they're looking for each other via pheromones. So you'll just usually find them perched, like on a, tree bark, maybe on some leaves. I actually took this photo of a dark firefly on my front door last summer. This is a Lucidota atra, also known as black firefly or woodland Lucy, and they're actually pretty common in our area. So you're highly likely to see one of these guys around. Let's see. Okay, so interestingly enough, fireflies have an amazing life cycle. They do go through a complete metamorphosis. So egg, larva, pupa, adult. The egg, larva, the egg, pupa, and adult phases are very short, not more than a couple weeks each. I mean, an adult might live for a month if they're lucky. In the larval phase, fireflies live for anywhere from 1 to 3 years. That also depends on species. It depends on habitat. I mean, there are some, some other factors that impact how long the larval phase goes on. But they look like little monsters, basically. So they are all, I mean, they have diverse appearances, but they all have, typically they have these kind of armored body segments. And they might even look a little bit like, I think this one on the upper left looks a little bit like an isopod. And let's see, sorry, hang on a second. They also can, and there are different, depending on the species, sometimes the eggs may glow, sometimes the larva may glow, sometimes the pupa may glow. So that is another thing that all these fireflies, regardless of whether they're dark fireflies or glowworms or flashing fireflies, they all have in common these bioluminescent communication systems. All right, so fireflies, this was something I learned that I was really fascinated by. Firefly larvae are voracious predators, primarily of soft-bodied insects that we would consider garden pests. So they love snails, slugs, earthworms. Maybe earthworms aren't really pests, but snails and slugs, they are fireflies' favorite prey. And firefly larvae, I should say. So what the larvae do is, using their mandibles, they will inject their prey with a neurotoxin to immobilize it. And then I add on top of that a digestive enzyme to liquefy it and then literally slurp it up. So, nature is brutal. But I had no idea that these beautiful little magical twinkling fireflies that fly around at night go through this larval phase where they're just like voracious predators. But the upside of that is that they provide a really valuable pest control service. So you want fireflies in your yard. You want the larvae in your yard for sure. Okay, now the adults, on the other hand, mostly do not eat at all. So they do all their eating in the larval phase. Okay, there have been fireflies observed sipping some nectar or maple syrup off of trees, but that's far and few between. They're not really, I mean, they might move a little pollen around, but you really wouldn't consider them pollinators. The exception to the adults not eating are females in the Photurus genus that actually eat other fireflies. So these predatory females will have somehow evolved the ability to mimic the flash patterns of females of other firefly species. So they will sit on their perch, flash like a female of some other species to lure a male in. And when he comes down, thinking he's, this is his lucky night, she'll grab him and eat him. And there are several Photurus species that the females will do that. Okay, so are fireflies in trouble? In word, yes. And even though there is not comprehensive data, because there's so many different firefly species, not all of them have been surveyed. We don't have population numbers for all of them, but the ones that have been surveyed, there are many indications that populations are in serious decline. And if you are familiar with, I'm assuming that most of you are actually pretty familiar with, the general consensus in the scientific community that, insects in general, invertebrates in general, are declining in diversity and abundance. So fireflies, suffice it to say, they are no exception. And they're declining for mostly the same reasons that most other invertebrates are declining, populations are declining. So, major threats I'm sure you've heard this before, people talking about other kind of insects, but habitat loss and degradation, light pollution, pesticides, things like poor water quality, invasive species can be really destructive to fireflies, and also climate change. So, for instance, like we've been in sort of a drought here in the Cleveland area, and fireflies, remember, are like really need a moisture-rich environment. So anytime there are extended droughts, the fireflies are going to suffer. So we'll talk about each of these just really briefly. I think that habitat loss and degradation is something we're all familiar with. And, it takes a lot of different forms, whether it's a woodlot being chopped down to put in a new subdivision, or a commercial strip or whatever. And there's other things we don't necessarily, that we're not seeing as directly, like, groundwater pumping, or, just habitats that get, chopped up in different ways. So, all the fragmentation going on, but so that, as it is to many other insects and invertebrates, that's impacting firefly populations. Pesticides are huge. Pesticide use, we know it's ubiquitous. And pesticides can affect fireflies, both directly, like for instance, if fireflies are out flying at night and, or at dusk, if it's a dusk flying species and a truck is coming around spraying for mosquitoes at the same time, the fireflies are toast. So it could be direct, or indirect. I mean, it can impact the larval food sources. It can impact the actual vegetation that their food sources use. So pesticides is always a big one. Climate change. I think that climate change is just impacting, whether we're talking about plants or invertebrates, I think that's impacting every species. So fireflies, again, no exception. Light pollution is in particular for fireflies is a very serious threat. And we're all familiar with photos like the ones on this slide, the urban sky glow, and you see the photos from satellites, just showing the Earth completely lit up. Because fireflies can only reproduce by finding, well, like at least the flashing fireflies and the glowworms can only reproduce if they can see each other at night, and they can't see each other at night if there's too much ambient light. So that's a big problem for them. So it's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff, and it's the same things we talk about with other kind of, invertebrate conservation issues. But there are actually things that we can all do to help fireflies out. So first of all, we just need to understand what they need. So they need habitats that are safe from pesticides, and I can't see the rest of my slide here. Hang on. And from pesticides and other threats. So they need moisture in their habitat. They've got to have food. They need shelter. And very importantly, they need dark nights. So what can we do to provide those kind of things for our fireflies? One of the things we can do, I'm sure you've heard about this. I'm sure lots of folks have talked about this, is leaving the leaves. It's a really interesting kind of issue I find in talking to people, because there are so many reasons people have not to leave the leaves in their yard. And I get it. I get it. Not everybody lives someplace where they can just leave their leaves all out, and have it destroy the grass, et cetera, et cetera. But the more you can find opportunities to have leaf litter somewhere in your yard, whether you're raking it into your garden beds in the fall, whether you have a space somewhere that's not real visible that you can, just pile up the leaves. But leaves are, first of all, they're not just important to fireflies, they're important to so many other invertebrates in so many ways. But with fireflies, most of their prey lives in leaf litter, and leaf litter increases your soil moisture. So by leaving the leaves, you're providing like perfect habitat for firefly larvae to thrive. Okay, so also, I would say, I mean, I know this slide says mow less often. And that's really a good thing. The other consideration, though, given that, many of us probably live in the suburbs somewhere, and we can't just let our, grass go for a couple months at a time, is just to mow higher. Because remember that not only are the larvae down in at the soil level, but especially when you start seeing fireflies in the summertime and you're seeing them flashing, those females are down in the grass. So if you're mowing too low to the ground, you're going to be chopping up all your female fireflies. So basically, the more the less often you can mow and the higher you can mow, the more likely you are to be helping fireflies and not killing them. The other thing is, and yay, plant native, right? So native plants are just the best for all of our wildlife. And for fireflies in particular, I mean, the more biodiversity you can get in there, you provide different perching heights. Some fireflies will rest or use, hide during the day in tree bark. The base of bunch grasses. I mean, anything that you're doing to increase the overall biodiversity in your space is going to be helping fireflies. Not to mention the fact that if you have enough tall species in your space, you're also helping to kind of have a little bit of a barrier for light pollution. So I'm sure you've heard this as well. Leave things a little bit messy, a little bit wild. So the more, wild things need wild places. So the more you can like kind of leave some debris or leave some dead branches or logs, not have everything be mulched and mowed to, within an inch of its death. The more you can do that, maybe add a water feature so you increase the moisture availability. The more you do that, you're basically helping all invertebrates. I mean, I've given Xerxes talk about just about pollinators, and we say the exact same thing when it comes to providing good habitat for pollinators. Eliminating pesticide use, that's huge. I know I'm preaching to the choir. The less we even think about using pesticides for cosmetic purposes, the better. Anyone who is using pesticides so that they can have a perfect lawn with no weeds or dandelions is basically they're creating an invertebrate desert in their yard. So I'm imagining that most of you are pretty familiar with that whole issue. The other thing, though, that we can all do that is extraordinarily helpful for fireflies is to reduce the light in our yards. So, just by reducing or eliminating unnecessary outdoor lighting, trying to use dimmer bulbs outside, use motion detectors instead of leaving, lights on all the time outside. Me personally, a couple years back, we put string lights up on our front porch. We have a big covered front porch. Put these string lights up, set them on a timer, and then they'd be on for a couple hours at night. I'd come home in the evening and see my beautiful lights glowing on my front porch. And I loved that. I was so happy until I realized that all the work that I was doing, planting all these native plants and trying to attract pollinators and other, invertebrates into my yard, I was undoing by having these lights on at night. So now I no longer have the lights. And guess what? I have fireflies in my yard. And it's pretty awesome. It's been really nice to see. The last couple of years, I've seen a lot of fireflies in my yard. So it's been very gratifying. Okay, so ultimately, you want to leave things, if you can, have some areas you can leave a little wild. Maybe have a way to get some moisture, some water in your yard, and do everything you can to eliminate light in the nighttime. These are the things that we can all do to help support our firefly populations. I want to show you just a couple pictures. The picture on the top is a photo of our most common firefly in the eastern United States. This is Photinus pyralis, the Big Dipper. These are the ones you are most likely to see in your yard in the evening. So I know these are the ones that have been flashing in my yard recently. The bottom photo, I just thought this was interesting. This is one of these predatory Photurus females. And I love this photo because she is in her hunting stance. So they're kind of, most of these Photurus species kind of have this like humpbacked stance. And so while she's flashing, mimicking the female of whatever other species to lure the male down, she's kind of crouched over like that. And I like that because she looks really ferocious. All right. There are a couple really good books out there if you're interested in learning any more about fireflies. The one on the left, Fireflies, Glowworms, and Lightning Bugs, by Lynn Frierson Faust, is excellent. I got that one as well as the one in the middle, Silent Sparks by Sarah Lewis, both out of the library. I ended up buying the Faust book for my own personal library. It's a really good, she has very good general information about fireflies, as well as lots of really great like species identification. Lots of good things about being able to ID species. And she is very impressed with this writer because she is probably one of the most well-versed people in the United States in terms of firefly science. And she is not a scientist. She's just a lady who grew up in Eastern Tennessee with a passion for fireflies and has done all kinds of research and probably knows more than any scientist in the United States. She's really cool. Xerces has a number of really good firefly resources. They're all available on the website. So again, you can pull them up, download them for free. I do have the links to most of those available. If anyone is interested, I could put in the chat while you guys are doing your meeting, or however that works out. But you can also just go to the Xerces website and put fireflies in the search bar, and you will pull most of this stuff up, and it's really good information. So, and just in terms of Xerces, just want to let you know they have a really great podcast called Bug Banter and a YouTube channel, and that's what I got. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you listening, and I hope that you now are able to look at fireflies and kind of see them in a whole new light, so to speak. No pun intended. All right, thanks everybody.
I love it. Thank you, Kat. I think we have a few questions. I think you answered the one Kim had asked a while ago, do all fireflies fly? And I think we kind of went through that as you explained the different kinds.
Yeah.
Kathleen just asked, can you talk a little bit about synchronizing fireflies in our area?
Oh, well, we don't really have any in our area. Not like in Northeast Ohio. I know there is a large population in, I don't know if it's North Carolina, maybe it's in the Appalachians. And there's actually a huge, well, I don't know if it's huge, but there is a firefly tourism industry. And I think Xerces actually has has a publication about that. So that's a big deal. Down in, again, I think it could be South Carolina, but I think it's North Carolina. The thought is that that synchronization is due to the fact that there's such a multitude of that particular species of fireflies that if they were all just kind of flashing randomly, it's too hard for them to really locate each other. Like the female, it's like it confuses the females. So when all the males are flashing in synchrony, they're actually able to see the males better than if they were just kind of, like just thousands upon thousands of them flashing at the same time, but randomly. So that's the thought. I think there is also, well, it might be Japan. There's some place in Asia where there's a big synchronous firefly, like it's a tourism thing. People go to see it, but I don't believe, and I could be wrong. I mean, I've learned a lot, but I wouldn't consider myself a firefly expert, but I don't believe there are any in our area.
I had the opportunity to go on a tour with Cleveland Metro Parks about 4 years ago, and they took us out to Holden and some other places out east, and we definitely saw the synchronizing fireflies out there.
Okay.
Yes. And
All
so
right,
there's someone over at North Chagrin Nature Center I can't remember her name right now, but she was our leader.
And you don't remember like what species it was or anything, do you?
No, because there were several.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that. I didn't know that. So that's really good to know. And actually, if they do that, I don't know if they do that tour every year, but I'd like to see that at some point.
I have no idea if they've done it again. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. But I'll keep my eyes open for something like that because I think that would be really awesome to see.
One of the cat you were talking about, one of the national parks in the Carolinas, they have a lottery for their synchronous firefly event. It's one of the locations inside of the Smoky Mountains. I've entered it now 3 times and have never won. It's a
Like
lot
there's
of
so
people.
many people who want to go
Yep.
that they have to limit the, oh
They do a
wow.
lottery. Yeah.
Wow.
And
That's
they have
crazy.
like thousands upon thousands of applicants, and they only pull a handful because obviously they're protecting.
Right.
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 They want to make sure you can keep the secret of the location too. They do a background check.
You can only come if you promise to tell no one.
You sign a
Sign an NDA.
Right?
wow. Well, but that's also cool that so many people want to go see it too.
Yeah.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes, for sure.
I mean, it's got to be an amazing natural phenomenon. So,
Absolutely.
but I'm real curious to follow up and, see what the metro, if this is happening in the metro park somewhere, even that would be awesome to see. So, yeah.
I have a tidbit of information that I learned last week. And this is for Summit County. I don't know if Cuyahoga County does this, but I learned that when the county goes through and sprays or fogs for mosquitoes, that you can actually get on a no spray list for your address through the county health department. And I forget exactly, it sounds too good to be true, but apparently they stop like a certain amount of yards before your house, and like they'll stop the sprayer if they go through your neighborhood, and then they'll start it again, however many feet or yards from your house. To, and you can check the schedule too to see like what neighborhood they're going to be in. So I didn't even know that existed. So for those of you in Summit County, I can drop that
Please do.
that link
I
in the
question guys who are in giant spray trucks killing massive amounts of insects. I question
I know.
how careful they're
Yeah.
going
It's
to be,
almost
but
like you
I
have to
like
get
the
all your
idea.
neighbors in on it, so that
To
way
sign
there's
in
like a
too,
whole
yeah.
chunk of addresses that they have to avoid.
Yeah.
But who knows? But yeah, I can share that. But I learned that, and I thought it was timely with you were talking about pesticides as well. So does anybody else have any questions for?
Oops. What did I just do?
You did stop sharing, which is
Let's see. What did I just do here? Let's go back to here. Screen. Come on. No. I don't know. I don't know what I pressed that made that go away. Previous. Let's see. No.
I started sharing again. Can any thumbs up if you can see it?
Let's see.
I can see your slide,
Okay.
Janice.
Okay. All right. Kat, like I mentioned, feel free if you want to stay on and hang out with us. Or if you have gardening to do tonight, or
I
go
would probably
grab
hang
dinner.
out for a little bit. I want to hear what you guys have to talk about, and I might not stay the whole time, but yeah, I'd like to kind of check out what's coming up, and yeah.
Yeah.
So
That'd be
all
great.
right, here we go.
Thank you so much for joining
Thank
us.
you, Kat.
You are very welcome. My pleasure.